Hey everybody, it's PartyElite, and today we're taking a look at Knights of Honor 2. If you're familiar with the original game, many of the concepts will seem like second nature to you already, though there are a few tweaks to keep in mind. If you're completely new to the series, then there's a lot of interesting ways in which Knights of Honor 2 approaches things differently that might completely throw you off when you first start to play. This video should help you navigate some of that initial exploration, whether you're a series veteran or newcomer, and if you have any specific questions or topics you'd like to see covered, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll answer all that I can. Now, without further ado, and with timestamps down below, let's begin. Managing the Realm's Knights. One of the biggest differentiators in Knights of Honor 2 are the titular knights that perform all the major actions in your kingdom based on their specific type. Marshals for military actions, merchants for trade dealings, diplomats for diplomacy, scholars for faith, culture, and knowledge, and finally, spies for espionage. Each type has its role in your kingdom depending on evolving circumstances, and up to 8 vacant positions can be filled at any time by spending money to employ random people from your realm. Alternatively, you can, without spending any money, pick one of your of-age family members to become one of your knights instead, with their type determined by how you chose to raise them and what skills and traits they've acquired since birth. Your monarch themselves counts as a knight on top of the other 8, and their type is also determined by skills and traits they'd acquired as they became adults, as with other family members. The monarch cannot be dismissed or replaced until they die, but family members can be dismissed without penalties, while dismissing non-family member knights will reduce the opinion of various strata of your society as depicted at the top left corner of the screen. The opinions of these groups will give buffs and debuffs across the kingdom, and the sum of their opinions also has an impact on kingdom stability, so you will want to avoid upsetting people with abandon. As such, even though having access to more knights means having access to more options, you want to make sure you don't find yourself in a position where you need to urgently fire a few, say, diplomats in order to make room for a new marshal who can lead a desperately needed army. Yes, only marshals can lead armies, only merchants can make trade deals, only diplomats can improve relations or devise invasion plans. You get the picture. The specialist knight types all have their place and role, with unique abilities that are essential to your realm. It is unwise to hire a bunch of merchants when surrounded by enemies, just as it is unwise to hire a bunch of marshals when you have no need for a standing army. However you acquire them, much of what your knights can do will actually generate income of one type or another, earning you one of the various resources listed across the top right corner of the screen. You want to make sure you have as many suitable knights active at a time as possible, leaving empty slots for emergency scenarios like when you desperately do need that standing army. At the same time, you'll want to invest in upgrading your knights wisely. They can acquire up to 5 skills and traits by spending the book's resources, and these can make a huge difference to any given knight's abilities. 3 of these skills align with their type, while 2 will be of a different category to add some diversity to each character. You can choose to further upgrade a skill by clicking on it after you've acquired it, investing additional books as well as money to go from level 1 to 2 and then to 3. When you look to choose a new skill, you'll be able to pick one of the handful of randomly provided options. You don't have much control over which options actually show up outside of the ones listed under traditions. These are only made available if a prior knight has reached the highest available level of that skill and you've gone to the Kingdom Traditions screen and dedicated one of your limited slots to said skill. Not only will this make the skill available for all future upgrades to all of your future knights, it will also add additional buffs to your kingdom as a whole, as well as to the skill itself for knights who have it, sometimes based on their type or their current task. Choose your traditions wisely. They cost a great deal of gold and books to unlock, on top of the investment made upgrading a knight to the highest skill level in the first place, but they give great boons depending on your playstyle and objectives. Most of the knight's actions are self-explanatory, and we'll dig into the more involved ones later in this video, but the one thing that may be the most unclear and understated by the game is the importance of governors. For that, we must discuss province, resource, and goods management. Every realm is divided into provinces, and within each province you will find a provincial capital, known as a town, as well as multiple additional settlements like castles, villages, religious settlements, crop farms, and coastal settlements. The number of these settlement types in a province, as you might imagine, plays a major role in determining how best a province should be used and which provinces you might want to pursue for conquest and further development. Provinces also have unique features that can represent access to certain types of terrain or resources, which in turn provide a variety of options within that province, as we'll discuss in a bit. click on this button to see a list of all of your provinces with details about which kinds of settlements are contained within, what resources each produces, as well as additional details about stability, garrison, siege defense capabilities, goods production, and construction. You can also see here if a province currently has an assigned governor or not. As mentioned previously, the use and importance of governors is extremely understated by the game, as when assigned properly, they can make a world of difference, especially early on in a game. On inspecting your provinces, you'll find that any that lacks a governor will only provide you a minor fraction of its actual output across all types of resources. This means significantly reduced gold, food, books, commerce, faith, and levy production, typically to the point that the province only produces one of each, whereas it has the capacity to produce literally 10 times as much at times, if not more. The moment you assign a governor, you'll reap the full benefits of the province as derived from the settlements within the province, any buildings you've built in the province, and the governor themselves. Some knights will have skills and traits that help bolster the production of a certain resource or another, and unlocked traditions can help provide additional benefits, but the type of the knight you're setting as a governor is the primary factor to consider. A marshal, for example, will increase the siege defense of a province as well as the production of levies in their governed province by adding +1 levy per settlement, and then an extra +1 per castle. Note that these stack. In this example, if a province has 4 settlements and 2 of those are castles, that's a total of 6 extra levies produced, compared to a province with 4 settlements, none of which are castles, resulting in a total of just 4 extra levies being produced. Similar arithmetic applies to other types of knights for different resources. A merchant will help a province produce additional commerce based on the number of settlements in the province, and then even more on top of that based on how many of those settlements are specifically villages. That is why it's important to keep in mind not just the number of settlements in a province, but also the types of these settlements, as these stacked modifiers can make a significant difference and should influence which type of knight you send to govern which province. Keep in mind that a knight can govern a province regardless of what else you've told them to do. Even if your marshal is leading an army in enemy territory, they can still be assigned as a governor, and you will still reap the benefits of said assignment. Note as well that any single knight can only be the governor of a single province, including the king. That's a maximum total of 9 governed provinces, leaving the rest without a governor and the benefits they bring. Choose assignments wisely and update them when needed. Apart from governors, you'll want to consider the ways in which you develop a province through construction. There are a total of 8 building slots available, though 4 of them need to be unlocked with gold. Any one slot can only fit 1 building, though each building also has multiple upgrades you can apply for additional benefits. Buildings listed higher up in a chain will often have prerequisites lower down the chain, and the same logic applies to upgrade trees as well. Something that might catch you off guard is that upgrades built at one province will automatically be built at the same building across all provinces where that building already exists, and if you build a new one of those buildings at a new province, it will automatically include the upgrades you've previously built elsewhere. This does not come freely. Costs of upgrades and new constructions alike reflect the number of structures that have already been built or the number of upgrades that are being included right off the bat. Either way, construction costs money and takes time, with the speed of construction being determined by the number of hammers being produced in the province. Some buildings require access to specific features within the province, while some upgrades require access to specific trade goods like wool, linen, dyes, etc. This is why you'll want to pursue certain buildings that produce said goods, or you'll instead want to recruit a merchant-type knight and have them specifically import a specific type of good or another from a foreign realm. As a quick tangent, having certain goods provides buffs to your kingdom as listed in the Kingdom Advantages screen, and on top of individual goods, having access to all the goods within a single category gives even further buffs across the kingdom. With that aside, when choosing which buildings to build, keep in mind that the settlement types have an influence on the output of a building and its upgrades. A barracks in a province with more castles is more productive, for example, as it produces additional levies per castle, but even without castles, it is able to provide unit recruitment options, which might be worth it enough to build one. Housing, meanwhile, provides additional population cap in the province as a base, with additional population cap added based on the number of villages within that province. Artisans produce gold, hammers, and commerce by default, but their upgrades are dependent on settlement types to maximize their output, like the tailoring shops and shoemaking shops that produce more per village within the province. Consider which of your provinces make for the best generator of gold, food, books, commerce, faith, and levies, and build them up accordingly, pursuing buildings and upgrades that synergize with the province and its settlement types, of course. Add the appropriate type of knight as a governor on top of that, and you'll truly optimize and maximize your gains. A coastal province with more coastal settlements might be better off focusing on the production of commerce through the construction of harbors and trade ports and their upgrades, alongside the assignment of a merchant-type knight as governor, especially if you've unlocked the navigation tradition for the extra boost. Meanwhile, a coastal province that has more castles than it has actual coastal settlements might be better used as a military staging ground with barracks, lords' castles, royal armories, royal palaces, all of their upgrades, and a martial-type knight as governor. Or a coastal province with more crop farms than coastal settlements might be better off pursuing the maximized production of food. You get my point. Study your province list, see how your settlements are distributed, and plan your use of governors and your construction accordingly. At the same time, don't ignore access to unique aspects such as terrain features and goods that give further access to additional development opportunities, including additional buildings and associated upgrades. Going back to our comparison of coastal provinces, taking a look at Marrakesh as an example, you'll see that it's not only a good place to generate food and money through farming due to its sheer number of crop farms, but taking advantage of the herbs and spices in the province by building an herb garden can further amplify the amount of money generated by said crop farms. Those same herbs and spices are less valuable in Valencia, where there simply aren't any crop farms for the added generation of gold that they would have brought with the herb gardens. Again, that doesn't make the base productivity of the building completely useless in Valencia, of course, but you are leaving extra productivity on the table by not building those buildings and upgrades in the right places. When first getting familiar with the game, study your options and compare what you can build with your province list. The game's tooltips do an excellent job of letting you know what benefits you're missing out on so you can course correct appropriately. And under no circumstances should you allow yourself to forget governor assignments. As mentioned previously, it makes a massive difference in the output of a province. Apart from matters of resource production and construction, we need to consider military matters. All of your provincial capitals and minor settlements within your provinces alike are key to the defense of the realm and your ability to mount an attack against your enemies. Settlements are only able to put up a fight in defense if they have any peasants, town guards, or levies stationed there. These appear based on the settlement type, the type of knight governing the province if applicable, and any buildings or upgrades built in the province. The larger the number of peasants or levies, the larger the garrison, and the more capable it is at defending itself. Lacking any such garrison, a settlement is open to being plundered by enemy forces, though the act of plundering itself takes a fair bit of time, allowing you to send an army to respond to the aggression if you have one available. Minor settlements aside, the provincial capitals themselves are a bit more involved as far as their defenses are concerned. Town fortifications can be built up to higher levels. The peasants and town guards typically are more numerous, though they are still dependent on building types, upgrades, and the governor. And finally, you're actually able to recruit squads of specific units to bolster the garrison, or you can ship them in from elsewhere with the help of an army. An excellent way to get higher tier troops garrisoned at provinces where there are no barracks for higher tier unit production. Either way, the population of a town is crucial in its defense, but that very same population is drained anytime you recruit units for the garrison or for any army that's stationed at the town. That same population is also drained when you try to replenish damaged units. It's a good idea then to focus on buildings and upgrades that increase population cap and growth rates, and to use those cities as the primary source of your troops. You can have some such provinces close to your borders, but having a few further back to act solely as a source of soldiers and replenishment without ever being under threat isn't a bad idea either. It's also a good idea to build up your initial armies slowly over time rather than draining the entire population of a province all at once in an emergency, and visiting mercenary camps to recruit units from them is a great way to avoid strain on your population, though it does tend to cost a lot more gold. Keep in mind, though, that your choice of new recruits is dependent on what buildings and upgrades you've built in the province where your marshal is currently recruiting, while replenishing troops does not need the prerequisite buildings where the replenishment is happening. Keep in mind, though, that replenishment and recruitment will both temporarily reduce population per unit where it's happening, which has of course a direct impact on the size of the garrison, and what's more, if a reduced stability in the province has caused peasants to turn rebellious, you won't be able to recruit them into your armies or garrisons either. Separate from the population and garrison of a town is its food stores. Various buildings and governor traits can change the maximum amount of food stored in a town, and when defending against an enemy, the slow drain of food supplies can potentially lead to their complete depletion and subsequent penalties to morale for the defenders. Mind you, food supplies are tracked for attacking and roaming armies too, and should they run out of supplies, they'll suffer major morale penalties too. You're able to refill supplies for an army by drawing some of the food out of the provincial capital when you're deployed there, but keep in mind it takes some time to replenish the stores. Keep an eye on morale, supplies, and troop strength alike. These can have a huge impact on the strength of your army and their actual chances of winning any given engagement, and sometimes it's wiser to keep your distance and replenish these three elements before engaging the enemy. If you do find yourself in an unfavorable engagement, don't be afraid to fall back. Sure, it will cause a massive hit to that army's morale for a fairly long duration, but the alternative could be seeing your marshal taken prisoner, potentially losing a valuable knight, or having to pay a significant sum of money to get them back. You can do the same with enemy knights, of course, so make sure to take advantage of that when you can. And if you're not averse to heinous acts of war, you should absolutely pillage any settlements you're able to during wartime in order to acquire tremendous amounts of gold and to replenish supplies when on the go. Raiding and pillaging is a great get-rich-quick scheme, though it does come with the risk of death, of course. When you're roving from settlement to settlement, though, keep an eye out for borders that you're traveling through. Sometimes you'll have to give orders for your army to avoid entering neutral territory, while at others, you'll want to force them through neutral territory so they can arrive at their destination more quickly. Either way, trespassing will upset the people you've trespassed against, so you'll want to be choosy about when you let that happen. You'll also want to be choosy about your targets when going on the offensive. Embedding a spy-type knight into an enemy realm will reveal to you their military movements, as well as their garrisons, food stores, and additional details about the provincial capitals. Beyond that, you can see just how many town guards, levies, or peasants are defending enemy settlements or capitals, and plan your attacks accordingly. And you can safely assume that a city that recently saw its population get drained might be an easy target, but it's also likely the sign of a large army in the vicinity. These details are masked by the fog of war, so make sure you send in a spy or an army to investigate by getting close before committing to an action based on old information. I hope the information in today's video helped you come to grips with Knights of Honor 2, and if it did, please don't hesitate to let me know by leaving a like and a comment down below. Again, if you have any specific topics you would like to see covered, or if you have any specific questions that you'd like clarified, feel free to ask away in the comments section down below, and I'll respond and answer to all that I can. And of course, if you want to see more videos with more in-depth explanations, let me know down below as well. And folks, if you're interested in more strategy gaming news, reviews, guides, let's plays, and more, don't hesitate to subscribe. And as always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.